What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to Celio's Network. This video is going to kind of be like my normal meta discussions that you'll see before major tournaments, but I've extended the invite to anyone in the community that would like to come on and talk about the topic, which today is going to be the expanded format of Black and White through Hidden Fates. And this format is going to be played at Richmond, Virginia regionals on November 2nd and 3rd, and the following week in Portland, Oregon, November 8th and 10th. There's a lot of changes in the expanded format since the last major events happened in North America, so there should be a lot of interesting decks and cards to talk about. And my guests did a wonderful job at bringing up their testing results and their theories and thoughts on how the meta might shape up to be. So I hope you all enjoy this community thoughts video on the expanded format, Black and White through Hidden Fates. Question number 1. We have gotten 2 full sets plus Hidden Fates since the last major expanded tournament. What changes in the meta do you expect to see?
I definitely expect to see like a lot of Mew Mew being played, like the card mechanic just being able to copy like any EX's and GX's attacks. It's just very abusable. Like there have been many concepts of the deck running around already, even though we haven't had a regional like to go off of, such as like Mew Plume, Exodia,
Mew and Mewtwo tag team. It's improved past archetypes that we've had, such as Despair Ray and Blastoise. So Blastoise has a lot more flexibility, being able to access like Kingdra GX's attacks and such. And now we got new decks coming out, such as Vileplume Box and the unfair handlock combo with Mewtwo. So that's what everyone should expect to see. You'll probably half your games you'll see a Mewtwo in front of you.
I think Turbo Dark is actually might be one of the best decks in format, if not the best deck in format, just because it's it can go turbo, rack up a ton of damage really early on, and a lot of decks don't really have ways of stopping it from doing anything other than just trying to take knockouts as fast as possible. And Turbo Dark also has a bunch of really good matchups in other tag teams. And then Guardian's also a thing. That's scary because with Aromatisse and healing cards, you can just sort of tank a Guardian and just keep hitting 150, and then eventually Magical Miracle can just sweep a board because you'll just eventually have all your energies on board to do it. Other than that, Mewtwo from Unified Minds really shakes up things because with the Mew box decks, you get a variety of attackers, such as stuff like Jolteon from Jolteon EX from Generations that can use Flash Ray and stop stuff. And combined with Vileplume, you can copy Alolan Exeggutor and Rowlet GX's Super Growth to get out of Vileplume, and then start using attacks like Flash Ray and Tone Deaf and Chaos Wheel and all that stuff. So Mewtwo is really strong in that sense. Plus, it's got 270 HP, which makes it better than the Marshadow box when Marshadow came out, Marshadow GX. And the last thing is Mewtwo also shakes up Archies by allowing you to copy stuff like Kingdra that you would have to Archies out previously, and it lets you copy Espeon Deoxys, which you can just slap in a Psychic Energy, you can Superior Energy retrieval it back, and then just get a really easy cross divide instead of having to go for Towering Splash, which is really annoying and shuts down a lot of decks really fast.
There's a few control cards that I expect to see come out. Chip Ice X and Lieutenant Surge are 2 powerful cards that I think, because that was 2 sets ago, right? Unbroken Bonds. Okay, so I think those 2 cards are good. I don't actually think Reset Stamp is that powerful unless you're playing item search cards like Karina.
The biggest change in the meta that I expect to see is Mew and Mewtwo GX. It's going to be something that expanded is centered around for probably many formats or many sets to come in expanded.
I expect control decks to be a lot more popular. Or at least a lot better, like Sableye, Zero Control, Shock Lock. I think all those decks have really good position in the meta right now. I think Shock Lock's a bit underrated, but I do think it's still very strong. And I think the biggest change that I've seen is that Blastoise is just getting crazy amount of hype. People are liking to play it with the Mew Mew and the Kingdra and then Espeon Deoxys. And I do think that is like very justified hype. I think it probably will be the most popular deck at the event.
I think the game's going to speed up, and I think the power level is also going to increase more dramatically than we've seen in years. There are so many cards that are so much easier to play now. Power Plant is an immediate ability lock. Reset Stamp is an N effect with the convenience of an item, and Stealthy Hood allows you to sneak past Garbotoxin in a way that we never have been able to. So I think the tempo is going to increase. And also because of Dedenne and Cherish Ball, you can just speed through your first turn so much faster. So decks like Drampagarb that relied on slow tempo and controlling the game aren't going to be able to survive past 2 or 3 turns.
Honestly, I just feel like a lot of the decks from the past format, like such as Archiestoys, Sablegarb, are just going to get like a lot of boosts from a lot of the cards that have been added from the past 2 formats. Like Stealthy Hood, Reset Stamp makes Sablegarb just extremely powerful. Just being able to give your opponent a new garbage hand every turn is just insane, and Espeon Deoxys just makes Archies completely busted.
Unified Minds brought a lot, most notably Mewtwo and Mew with the Perfection ability. Some other cool stuff is like Chandelure with Spirit Burner or the Egg Rowlet tag team. BHM is kind of cool, and then Reset Stamp and or Karate Belt are probably going to be niche here and there. So can't really see Hidden Fate shaking up, but Unified Minds added a ton, and I think Mewtwo is going to be a major contender.
A whole lot of Mewtwo. That's basically what everyone's been talking about is Mewtwo. Just the fact that you can literally just battle compressor stuff in the discard pile. You can use megas, all that fun stuff. I also think, with assuming Surge doesn't get banned or anything like that, Control's gonna abuse the crap out of that.
So most recent regionals was Hartford, I believe, which was won by Jose playing Turbo Ray, I believe, with Trevenant getting second. I see the format to continue into like a super turbo build with like Turbo Ray, Turbo Dark, or the extreme opposite, like super control decks like Vileplume, Mewtwo, and like Sablegarb and stuff like that. I don't really see like super not tempo decks, but use like a Hearthstone term, like mid-range decks like Zorogarb and stuff like that. Like I see like super turbo or super control.
I also think that some people are going to have their go at Reshizard in Expanded. However, I don't think it's going to do that well.
Question number 2. TPCI has expressed that they aggressively monitor the expanded format for any cards or combos that could be unhealthy for the game, such as Unknown Damage Win on turn 2 and Red Card Delinquent Peaking Red Card. Do you foresee any unhealthy cards or combos in Black and White Hidden Fates, which will be played at Richmond and Portland Regionals?
Going back to last year where they had the Peaking Red Card Delinquent Red Card combo, I've only played in one Expanded Cup so far this year, and I played a Mew3 Exodia deck, which used Red Card, Mars, Chip Axe, and Honchkrow GX's Unfair GX to get the idea of not allowing your opponent to play on turn 1. I thought that was a great idea, but going into the Cup, I quickly realized that deck is not really as good as I thought it would be, just due to the fact of Turbo Dark and stuff that just super explode on turn 1. They can, if they go first, do their Max Elixir, Dark Patch, crazy setup, you can't keep up with it. But I still expect a lot of people to play like the Red Card, Mars, Chip Axe, some form of Exodia deck. I could also see stuff like Dimension Valley, or I'm not sure which part of the combo for Alolan Executor or Vileplume, but I think one of those two could possibly get banned as well, just due to like a turn 1 item lock, which TPCI doesn't seem to like too much.
The only one that I feel like is sort of unhealthy is like Espeon Deoxys being a card that exists and is like viable to use in Archies. Like I don't think Espeon Deoxys is the problem card, because it's like a cool card. It does a really cool thing given a certain amount of energies, but like comboed with Archies is just way too powerful.
as I said before, the Mewtwo handlock combo. So how the combo works is it's red card into Mars into Chip Chip Ice Axe to patrol the top deck, and then you use Honchko's Unfair GX attack to discard 2 cards from your opponent's hand. So you just leave them with a useless card in their hand, and you're giving them a useless top deck. So it's basically they're just the goal of the deck is just to make it so your opponent can't play the game. And that's really the only unhealthy combo right now. So I think if they banned red card and Mars, they would solve that problem.
Yeah, there's actually a few. Archie's the Mew Mew into the Espeon Deoxys cross divide is, I think it's pretty unhealthy because the fact that you can just go turn 1 6 energies and then spread 20 damage to kill a bunch of like little Pokemon setup decks is really unhealthy. It can shut down like Garbodor decks, which was what Archie's had like a tough time against previously. It can shut down pretty much anything that takes things to evolve. So like Zoroark, Vespiquen. It can shut down Night March pretty easily. It's just really unhealthy because once you cross divide, then you can still copy stuff like Super Splash and Kingdra's attack. I forgot the name. I think it's like Hydro Pump or something. And you can just rack up like tons of damage. So I think Archie's needs to go. And then the other thing that I think is super degenerate is the Mew Mew Exodia deck, which is similar to the Zoro Exodia deck from last year. But instead of going like turn 1 Delinquent Peaking red card, you go set their hand to 4, Mars them to put their hand to 3, and then copy Unfair GX to put their hand down to 1, but you get to choose the cards. And then you use Chip Chip Ice Axe and Hiker to just keep setting their top deck, and then you just sweep them with Riotous Beating and Emerald Break with a Skyfield in play. And I think that's super unhealthy. I've played the deck a few times. There's definitely things that can just shut it down. But overall, like, people still have to tech for both of these decks, and the techs aren't even like foolproof.
The handlock deck with Mew Mew, the Let Loose, Attach DCE, Battle Compressor, the Honchkrow, and the Chip Chip, like, that's a little bit more hard to find. But I could see that combo being a little overpowered, but you have to opt to go second. It's not like the old red card delinquent, peaking red card where you can just go first and get rid of your opponent's hand because you actually have to attack with this combo. So you have to choose to go second in order to lock your opponent's hand. And if you do get the lock, then it is pretty broken, but it's harder to pull off than that old lock where you had like you just had to get the red card stadium delinquent, which was a much easier combo, and you didn't even need the peaking every time you did that combo.
So as we all know, they banned Jesse James before the card. Well, it expanded before the card was even released. But despite that, there's still like this Mewtwo hand lock or hand control deck that's going around. It's not as strong as like some of the Zoroark versions that we've seen in the past because of some of the bans that came due to that. But it's still toxic if you can pull it off, and I expect it to be played in some form, just not as much as like other control decks that expanded seen over the past year or so with Zoroark. But that definitely exists. It sucks to play against. Another one is Sableye got a lot better with Lieutenant Surge, which we haven't seen in a major expanded event since it was released. Sableye's a deck with like a lot higher skill cap, so it probably won't be played as much. But it's still like it'll probably go far, provided at least somebody plays it or somebody worth noting.
So I think Expanded is kind of like full of broken combos. I think that most of the decks people play are like just full of like combo oriented like ways to break the game. Expanded. I think even like something like Archie's is kind of like you're just like sort of whipping the Blastoise out and then using Mew Mew to copy things like Kingdra to just like there's no way the game was built to be played that way. But like I think that is like should be on people's radar. That's very I think to me that's like sort of a broken combo. And then more notably with some of our new inclusions like Chip Ice Axe and Reset Stamp, we have sort of like a huge slew of handlock cards. The cards that I was thinking of were Surge, Hiker, Trick Shovel, Reset Stamp, Red Card, Mars, and Chip Ice Axe. All of those cards are like really, really strong. And with things like Sableye, Zoro Control, or just like Mew Mew and Honchkrow GX, they all like abuse those sort of like hand control trainers options.
Cross division has sort of become a gatekeeper in standard, and in expanded it's even more disgusting. You can do cross division for 200 on turn 1 with Archie's Toys, and it's not even outside the realm of possibility to do that under Wild Block. So I think that sort of eliminates evolution as a mechanic, and that's probably not what they were hoping for.
I think the most recent that I've heard about are going to be Mewtwo with the Perfection ability. Again, copying stuff such as Serena GX or Honchkrow GX. You can use Red Card, Mars, and or Mismagius with any of those to make some really silly combinations. I doubt that the GG and combo deck will see play, as we don't have Island Amulet, and that makes the combo a bit weaker, but someone might try to do something with it.
The new Mew Mew GX is absolutely beyond broken. The fact that you can copy Kingdra's Hydro Pump on turn 1 to take 3 prizes on a tag team, or to potentially use Espeon Deoxys's Cross Division GX to spread 200 damage anywhere on turn 1 is beyond broken. I think either Mew Mew or Archie's, should probably. I just think personally, I feel like Mew 3, Mew Mewtwo tag team should be banned and expanded. There's too many ridiculous combos that there'll probably be more combos that people will come up with.
Question number 3. Whether it be online, in friend groups, or at tournaments, are there any cards or archetypes that you've heard a lot of hype about for Richmond and or Portland regionals?
There's really 3 decks I've been hearing hype about, just from my friend groups and stuff. So one obviously is Archie's with Mew Mew and Espeon Deoxys. That's from my own personal testing. I played Archie's to 3 expanded regionals last season, so I love playing Archie's. So that's been the only deck I've really been testing. So that deck is honestly broken. There's also a lot of people trying out and hyping up, Mew Mew with Vileplume. So you have the Alolan Executor and Rowlet tag team. It allows you to evolve, your Oddish into Vileplume, like the first turn you can attack, which means you shut off, all trainers, that your opponent can't play trainers at all the entire game, which is kind of cool. And then you have some decent attackers from expanded format that can combo with that. That's been seeing a little bit of hype. And the third deck that I've seen a lot of talk and also just streamers playing is Raticate. I think, that deck becomes viable because of the addition of triple acceleration energy into the format. And Raticate is basically, it says you can put your opponent's Pokemon's health down to 1, and then you combo it with like a Hypnotoxic Laser to finish that last 10 damage. So Raticate can pretty much one-shot tag teams, which is really cool. You'll probably see that played with either Zork GX, or heck, maybe you can just play Raticate by itself and just play a bunch of draw cards like Shaman EX or Dedenne GX.
So a bunch of locals and I, we've done some testing for that cup a few weeks ago, and our big 3 decks that we really seem to like were Hitmonwob, Shocklock, and Turbo Dark. Hitmonwob seems like the answer to Archie's, Turbo Dark, anything that just explodes on turn 1 due to Bide Barricade. Shocklock is just that super extreme control deck that doesn't let your opponent play the game, but it's really tough to find 4 beaches, 8 or 12 if all of us decide to run it for Portland. And Turbo Dark is just super strong. It sets up, can hit for, I think we've seen 210 or 240 on turn 1, and it just has the ability to dead end GX at any point in the game to kill a tag team.
Online, everyone's talking Mew Plume and Mewtwo Handlock and Sable Garb, but in my own personal testing group, we've seen that like Mewtwo Turbo Spread, copying Mega Gardevoir's Despair Ray attack, has been like the best deck in our testing, and also we've been messing around with some Garbodor variants, with like we've been experimenting with like just Dimension Valley and Power Plant, and they seem to be going really well. And a combo that we've found, a simple 2-card combo that ruins a lot of games for people, is Power Plant plus Marshadow Let Loose. And, you know, we've been trying to figure out decks that can play that combo.
A lot of people have been talking about Archie's toys, but like that's already a given. And I've been talking with a lot of people, and they just all think that Sable Garb is just insane. It's broken.
Sable Garb, again, I can't stress it enough. Sable Garb is definitely the most hype in our testing group that I've heard, at least. Mew Mew variants and Archies have been up there as well. I think Zoroark is definitely dying down, though, because of Espioxys.
Yeah, a lot of hype is around Archies, because Espy on Deoxys turn 1 is just, like, super, super broken. And, like, it kind of, like, defeats evolution decks if they're not teching for it with, like, Wobs or that Bronzong that you can evolutionary advantage going second.
Online, I've seen a lot of Turbo Dark, and I've seen, like, on PTCGO, I play against a lot of Raticate and Expanded. I don't know how much it'll convert to major tournament results, but I do see a lot of Raticate.
The deck that I've heard the most conversation about is definitely Sable Garb. It can use N and Hiker in item effects now with Reset Stamp and Pick X or whatever it's called. It's not Pickle in English, which is really upsetting. But they can also use Surge and Handiwork or Mars. So they're getting 4 supporter effects while ability locking you and using hand lock techniques. I think people are really excited about that. And I think Turbo Dark is another one. It's just gotten such a huge numerical power creep that it can suddenly hang with the insane broken combos just by being so strong.
Again, Mewtwo, blah, blah, blah. I think that's going to be pretty good. Turbo Dark is probably the biggest that I've heard. I've tested with it a bit. The deck is silly. You can go from 0 to 100 just in a snap.
Question number 4. Which archetypes do you currently think are some of the best in the format for Richmond and or Portland regionals?
Looking at Mewtwo, it's got like the most, it's like definitely versatile. Like it's probably going to be what people are going to be preparing for the most. Aside from that, I haven't really paid attention to many of the expanded cups. I'm sure somehow, some way, Zoroark still has a place. I don't know.
We've been joking around saying that Shocklock is pretty much guaranteed points, we think. It's a 9-round tournament. It does really well against a bunch of different decks, and a lot of people aren't expecting it, but again, it has a huge barrier to play. I think, again, Turbo Dark, Hitmonwomp are great plays. They either just try and set up and out damage your opponent really quick, or lock your opponent out with Bide Barricade. And if you have the skill to play Sable Garb, I think that's an excellent play with Reset Stamp and Chip Backs being added to the deck.
Obviously, Archie's toys and Sable Garb are the top 2, but I think a close third could be either Turbo Dark or Mew Mew archetype that can exploit Vileplume.
Yeah, so number 1 for me, obviously Sable Garb, as I've been preaching this whole interview. Number 2, Mew Mew variants. As much as I personally don't like it, I think Mew Mew is such a broken card, and it should, in theory, be banned, but at the same time, we don't have any results to go off of, so I highly doubt we will get a ban. Archie's has always been up there. It's a good high roll deck if you like high rolling and just taking wins because you hit heads on order pad or something like that. Go for it.
I think Blastoise, Turbo Dark, and Mewtwo Turbo Spread are easily like the best decks in the format. They can all execute their game plan on turn one, without having to really worry about, hard ability lock like Garbodor or anything, or getting hand locked, because you always get at least one turn before the item lock or whatever comes in. The only thing they have to worry about is Silent Lab and Power Plant. And the Mewtwo decks are playing like 4 stadiums, 2 field blowers, and Blastoise is playing a bit of removal too. So I don't really see it as a, they're just so powerful because their turn one setups are so powerful, and it doesn't matter if their hand is gone or they have no abilities after their first turn. They're already set up.
I think Archie's, Turbo Dark, and Sableye are kind of what I think to be I think those are like the best archetypes right now. Sableye is weird because it can just start dead drawing, which I've had happen to me plenty of times, but when it doesn't dead draw, it just sort of like beats everything.
Like Mew center decks, Turbo Dark and Archie's are probably going to be the big 3. And then Sableye will probably also be good and will probably do very well with the right pilot.
So, yeah, I have 3 decks I think that are going to see either a lot of play or going to be at the top tables and potentially win the event. Number 1 is, as I've said, Archie's with Mew and Espeon Deoxys. That's my number 1 pick for the tournament, although I'm not going. It is definitely a broken deck. You can draw through almost your entire deck on turn 1, and have access. You can have access to all of your energies and stuff like that, as long as you don't prize the Espeon Deoxys or a Psychic. I mean, you're chilling. That deck is beyond broken. It's done the best in my testing so far. The second deck that's really good right now is Sableye Garbodor. I think Sableye is favored against almost every deck in the format right now, except for potentially Item Lock. Obviously, because with Item Lock, Sableye can't use like half your deck. Even though, even if you say get a Float Stone on your Trubbish turn 1, on the 1 turn you get, people play Faba, or they can simply Guzma kill up the Garbodor at some point in the game, and then you won't ever have your items again. So, but other than that, Sableye Garb is like a really, really good deck. And third, I would actually have to say Hitmonchan. I think I haven't talked about it at all, but I think Hitmonchan saw a decent amount of play at the last expanded regionals of the season. The deck inherently plays Wobbuffet, and I think Wobbuffet is going to be a really good card in expanded. It doesn't block Mew Mew's ability, but it blocks Vileplume, it blocks Shaman EX, it blocks Dedenne GX, it blocks Blastoise. It blocks a lot of abilities, and then Hitmonchan is just with the extra damage modifiers and strong energy, muscle band, fighting dojo, that kind of stuff. The damage can rack up, and it's a really good 1 prize attacker deck.
I hope you enjoyed what my guests had to say, and thank you again to everyone involved in this video. It was my great pleasure to record and produce this video, and I hope to do some more projects like this again in the future. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, comment, and like if you enjoyed. Check out flipsidegaming.com and use code CELIO all caps for 10% off of your next order, $10 or more. And I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.